The rain had been falling since morning, soaking the sidewalks and filling the gutters with rushing water. Most people hurried under umbrellas or stayed inside, but Lily didn't mind the rain. She liked the way it made the world quieter, softer, like everything had been gently turned down. She walked home slowly, her school backpack bumping against her shoulders, her hood pulled low over her forehead. As she passed the old fence near the back alley behind the bakery, something made her stop. It wasn't a loud noise, just the tiniest whimper, like a soft cry being swallowed by the storm. She turned her head, eyes scanning the soaked bushes and the puddles pooling around the trash bins. The sound came again. Whimper. Pause. Whimper. It was coming from behind a stack of old, rain-spotted boxes. Heart racing, Lily stepped closer. There, beneath a torn piece of cardboard, was a tiny creature curled into a trembling ball of wet fur. It looked like a puppy, but something felt off. Its fur was a mix of silver and gray with odd flecks of gold that shimmered even in the cloudy light. Its ears were too big, flopping halfway over its eyes, and its tail flicked nervously, but didn't wag. What really caught her attention, though, were its eyes, large, round, and bright with an almost human-like sadness. Lily's heart broke. "Hey there, it's okay," she whispered, dropping to her knees in the wet grass. The puppy thing stared at her, unmoving. She slowly reached into her coat and slipped it off, wrapping the creature gently in its dry inner lining. It didn't resist. Instead, it let out a soft sound, not a bark, but something higher, sweeter. It sounded almost like a tiny flute being played from far away. "You're freezing," she said, hugging the bundle to her chest. "I've got you now. You're coming home with me." She looked around to see if anyone was watching, but the alley was empty. Without a second thought, she hurried toward her neighborhood, clutching the tiny animal close. Each step made her more certain. This wasn't just some stray. It felt important, special, like something forgotten that needed to be remembered. By the time Lily reached her front door, her shoes were soaked and her clothes clung to her skin, but she didn't care. She glanced down at the creature nestled in her coat. It looked up at her, blinked once, and made that strange musical sound again. And Lily smiled. "I think I'll call you Mochi." Lily tiptoed into the house, careful not to make a sound. Her parents were still at work, and her older brother never noticed anything unless it made noise or blocked the Wi-Fi. That gave her just enough time to figure out what to do. She darted up the stairs and into her room, closing the door gently behind her. The bundle in her coat squirmed slightly, but didn't make a sound. Lily laid it down on her bed and slowly unwrapped the coat. The creature blinked up at her with those huge, luminous eyes, then let out another soft, musical noise, like wind chimes in a breeze. "I still can't believe you're real," she whispered. Her room wasn't big, but it was cozy. She had a bookshelf crammed with storybooks and drawings taped to her walls, mostly animals and stars. Her favorite blanket, the one with crescent moons and sleepy bears, was bunched at the foot of her bed. She grabbed it and folded it into a makeshift nest in her closet, tucking it around a basket she usually used for toys. "This can be your new bed," she said, gently lifting the creature and placing it inside. It sniffed the blanket, let out a small trill, and curled up into a neat little ball. Its tail wrapped tightly around its body, and its ears drooped like they were finally at peace. Lily sat beside the closet for a moment, just watching it breathe. "I think you're the strangest puppy I've ever seen," she said with a small laugh. "But maybe that just means you're the best kind." When her brother stomped up the stairs and turned on the TV in the next room, she jumped into action. She pulled the closet door almost shut, just enough for air, and left a plate of cut-up fruit nearby. Somehow, she just knew the little creature wouldn't eat dog food. That night, after dinner and homework, Lily lay in bed listening to the rain still tapping gently against the windows. Everything was quiet, until she heard it. A soft melody, like tiny bells being played by invisible hands, drifted through her room. She sat up, her eyes wide. The sound was coming from the closet. Lily didn't feel afraid. If anything, she felt safe. The sound reminded her of something she couldn't quite name, like a lullaby from a dream she'd forgotten. She leaned back on her pillow and listened as the music wrapped around her like a blanket. And just before she drifted off to sleep, she thought she saw her drawings shifting gently on the wall. By the next morning, Lily was sure something wasn't normal about Mochi. She had woken up early, before the alarm, with that same gentle music still echoing in her ears. But when she sat up, the sound vanished, as if it had been waiting for her only in sleep. She crossed the room and slowly opened the closet. Mochi was wide awake. Its bright eyes locked with hers, and it made a quiet chirping sound. Not quite a bark, not a meow, but something different. Softer. It stood up and stretched, revealing its oddly shaped legs. They were longer than a puppy's, and its back feet looked almost paw-like but flexible, almost like small hands. "Okay," Lily whispered, crouching beside it. "You are officially the weirdest dog I've ever seen." She placed a small bowl of leftover meat scraps in front of it, something she had hidden from last night's dinner. Mochi sniffed it, tilted its head, and then pushed the bowl away gently with its nose. Then it walked over to the corner where Lily had left some apple slices and happily munched them down, its ears flicking with satisfaction. "No meat? You really are different." Later that afternoon, Lily sat in her room sketching in her notebook while Mochi lay curled up in a corner. She had tried drawing it from memory, but every time she looked away and looked back, she felt like she had missed something. The markings on its fur seemed to shift just slightly, as if reflecting patterns from the light or even her thoughts. Then something strange happened. As Lily was reaching for a colored pencil, she heard a tiny rustle. She turned her head and froze. All of her houseplants, which usually sat silently in their little pots by the window, were now standing tall, vibrant, green, and blooming. They had looked half dead yesterday, but now their leaves were full, their colors deep and alive. Mochi was sitting directly beneath them, calmly blinking at her. Lily stood up and approached the plants, touching a fresh petal in awe. "Did you do this?" she whispered. Mochi simply yawned. That evening, her mother poked her head in the room and frowned. "Did you use perfume in here, Lily? It smells like flowers." Lily shook her head. "Nope. Maybe the rain brought in the scent." Her mother shrugged and walked away. As the door clicked shut, Lily turned back to Mochi, who was now curled on her blanket again. "You're not just a puppy," she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "You're something else." And Mochi, without moving, blinked slowly, as if it already knew she was right. The next morning, Lily couldn't stop thinking about Mochi. The glowing eyes, the flower-blooming presence, the musical sounds, it was all so strange, yet somehow beautiful. She had never felt afraid. But now she was curious enough to start looking for answers. At recess, while her classmates played on the swings and argued over trading cards, Lily slipped away to the school library. It was quiet, the way she liked it, and the smell of old books made her feel calm. She went straight to the animal section and pulled out books on dogs, foxes, and anything else that might match Mochi's features. She flipped through pages quickly. Paws, tails, ears, fur colors. Nothing looked right. No mention of chirping or glowing eyes. She even found a book on rare breeds, but Mochi wasn't in there either. Frustrated, she stood up to put the books back. As she turned, she nearly bumped into Mrs. Winslow, the school librarian. "Looking for something special?" Mrs. Winslow asked, smiling gently behind her glasses. Lily hesitated, just trying to figure out what kind of animal my friend found. Mrs. Winslow raised an eyebrow. "What kind?" "It looks like a puppy," Lily said carefully, "but it doesn't bark. It makes music. And weird things happen around it." The librarian's smile faded slightly. She studied Lily for a moment, then nodded. "Come with me." She led Lily to a small, dusty corner of the library where the oldest books were kept. books students rarely touched. She reached up and pulled down a thick volume with a cracked brown cover. The gold letters on the front had mostly faded, but Lily could still read the title, Creatures of the Hidden Realms. Mrs. Winslow opened it slowly, flipping through pages filled with drawings and strange names. She stopped at one that made Lily's breath catch. There in the middle of the page was a creature that looked just like Mochi. Wide eyes, oversized ears, speckled fur. The caption read, Fenneca, a guardian of the forest, rarely seen by humans, gentle, secretive, and deeply connected to the balance of nature. Can only be found by those with pure hearts and open minds. Lily stared at the picture. So, it's not a dog. Mrs. Winslow closed the book. No, dear. If what you saw matches this, it's something very rare, very special, and very old. Lily swallowed. Should I be worried? Mrs. Winslow smiled again, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. Not if you're kind. But be careful. Creatures like that, they don't appear by accident. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. The image from the book, Fenneca, was etched into her mind like a memory she didn't know she had. A guardian of the forest, a creature of magic, something rare and ancient that had chosen her. She turned over in bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the rain had stopped. A quiet hush settled over the neighborhood, the kind of silence that felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Then she heard it, a soft chime, like tiny bells ringing from somewhere close. She sat up, heart racing, and looked toward the closet. The door was slightly open. Inside, Mochi was awake, staring at her with those glowing eyes. It let out a soft trill, stood up, and padded to the window. Lily followed. Mochi stood on the windowsill, ears perked, body tense, not scared, but alert. It turned its head to her, gave one short, musical chirp, and then leaped silently onto the grass below. Mochi, Lily whispered, shoving her window open wider. Without thinking, she pulled on her hoodie and slipped out after it, her feet landing softly on the damp earth. The backyard was dark, but not empty. Trailing across the grass were small, glowing footprints. They pulsed softly, one after the other, leading away from her house and toward the edge of the woods. They shimmered like moonlight trapped in puddles, impossible to miss. Lily looked down and whispered, "You want me to follow?" She didn't question it. She just moved. Each step brought her deeper into the shadows of trees. The night air was cool but not cold. The footprints glowed just long enough for her to keep up, then faded behind her. The trees above swayed gently, though there was no wind. It felt like they were watching her, but not in a scary way. More like they were welcoming her. Mochi stayed just ahead, pausing now and then to let her catch up. Occasionally it looked back, its eyes bright and sure, as if to say, "You're doing fine." Deeper and deeper they went. Soon, the familiar sounds of her neighborhood faded completely. No cars, no voices, just the quiet hum of nighttime forest and the soft crunch of her footsteps. Finally, just as Lily was starting to wonder how far this path would go, the footprints stopped. They ended at the base of an enormous tree with glowing bark and leaves that sparkled like stars. Mochi sat beneath it, waiting. And Lily knew this wasn't just a walk. This was a beginning. Lily stood frozen beneath the towering tree, her eyes wide with wonder. It looked nothing like the trees she'd seen before. Its bark glowed faintly, like soft candlelight, and its branches spread high and wide, shimmering with silver-green leaves that swayed even though the air was still. Mochi sat at the base, perfectly calm, like it had done this 100 times before. Lily stepped closer, her shoes crunching gently over moss that sparkled underfoot. As she neared the tree, something shifted in the air, like the hum of distant music tuning itself. The tree's leaves rustled with a sound like whispered voices, not words exactly, but something she could feel in her chest. A warm, tingling sensation filled her from head to toe. Then, before her eyes, the bark at the center of the tree began to shimmer, and part like a curtain. A soft doorway opened. Beyond it was a glowing grove, bathed in golden mist. Strange plants grew in spirals, flowers opened and closed with the rhythm of breath, and the air smelled of honey and rain. Floating lights hovered like tiny stars, blinking gently as if greeting her. Lily gasped, "Is this real?" Moki stepped through the doorway and turned to look at her, tail swaying slowly. Lily followed, her heart beating so hard it felt like it echoed in the grove. Inside, the world felt alive. Every step she took was met with a soft, welcoming pulse in the ground. Trees with twisting trunks bent ever so slightly as she passed, their branches forming arches above her. Creatures she couldn't name peeked from behind vines, some with wings, others glowing faintly, but none of them seemed afraid. At the center of the grove stood another tree, even taller than the first. Its roots shimmered with golden threads that spread across the ground like veins of light. Then, without warning, figures began to emerge from the mist. They were tall and graceful, cloaked in robes made of leaves, bark, and starlight. Their faces were kind, their eyes ancient and bright. One stepped forward and spoke in a voice that was deep but gentle. "You have brought back one of our own," the figure said. Lily glanced at Mochi, who now stood between them. As she watched, the little creature began to change. Its small frame stretched, its fur transformed into soft, leafy tendrils, and delicate wings unfurled from its back. Its eyes still held that same gentle glow. Lily whispered, barely able to breathe, "Mochi." The figure smiled. "You call it Mochi. We call it Fenneca, and it remembers your kindness." Lily stood in stunned silence as Mochi, no, Fenneca, hovered gently above the ground, its leafy wings glowing softly. It looked different now, more magical, more complete, but it still had the same eyes, the same gentle soul she had found curled in the rain. The tall figure stepped forward again, his cloak rustling like wind through trees. "You were chosen, Lily," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Few ever see the realm you stand in. Fewer still are trusted by the forest itself." Lily looked around at the glowing plants, the silent watchers, the strange and beautiful world. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Because you showed kindness with no reward. You sheltered a creature no one else would understand. That alone opened the path." Fenneca flew to her and landed softly at her side. It nuzzled her hand, and she felt a pulse of warmth spread through her fingers. It wasn't just affection. It was something deeper, a connection, as if part of her now lived in this world too. "But what happens now?" Lily asked. The other forest beings exchanged glances. Then the leader spoke again. "The balance is shifting. The world outside has begun to forget the old ways. The hidden ones are fading. But when a human remembers, when they choose to care, the balance can begin to heal." He held out a small pendant, an amber-colored gem that glowed faintly in the palm of his hand. "You may return to your world and forget all of this, or you may keep the memory, keep the bond. But with it comes a promise, a responsibility." Lily stared at the gem, then at Fenneca. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Fenneca chirped softly, the same sound it had made when she found it in the rain. It stepped closer, wrapping its tail gently around her wrist. "If you choose to remember," the figure said, "Fenneca will never be far. You will be one of the few who walk both worlds." Lily took a deep breath. She thought about her quiet room, the drawings on her wall, her ordinary life. Then she looked around at the glowing grove, the warmth in the air, the feeling that something ancient had trusted her. Her fingers closed around the pendant. "I want to remember," she whispered. The forest seemed to sigh in relief. The trees swayed gently. The light grew warmer. Fenneca chirped again, and Lily knew, deep in her heart, that this was just the beginning of something greater. The next morning, Lily woke in her bed as sunlight streamed through the curtains. For a moment, everything felt normal. Her room looked the same, the bookshelf, her drawings, the moon blanket twisted at the foot of the bed. Had it all been a dream? She sat up slowly, eyes scanning the room. Then she saw it. On her desk, resting quietly beside her sketchbook, was the amber pendant. It glowed faintly in the morning light, its warmth pulsing gently as if alive. Lily smiled and held it close. It had been real. She rushed to the window and looked out at the backyard. No glowing footprints, no shimmer in the trees, but somehow the grass looked greener. The flowers had opened early, facing the sun as if listening. Everything seemed brighter, more awake. Later that day at school, things felt different too. The hallway chatter, the scribbles on the whiteboard, even the playground arguments, they all felt smaller, like they belonged to a world she could still live in, but no longer fully belonged to. During lunch, she sat alone beneath the old oak near the fence. She pulled out her sketchbook and began to draw. First, a creature with large ears and shimmering fur. Then, the glowing tree, the floating lights, the grove. She didn't need a photograph. Every detail was printed clearly in her mind. As the wind stirred the leaves above her, she heard a soft chime. She looked up quickly. Nothing, just the breeze. But she smiled. She could feel it. Fenneca was near. In the days that followed, Lily began to notice things others didn't. A bird leading her to a hurt kitten tangled in wire. A broken branch falling moments before it would have hit a boy chasing a ball. Flowers blooming on dry ground after she passed. She didn't speak of it to anyone. She didn't need to. She wore the pendant always, tucked under her shirt. At night, it glowed softly beside her bed. And sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she could still hear the music, faint, magical, like bells dancing with the wind. Lily had returned to the human world, but she wasn't just a girl anymore. She was a guardian now. Not of the whole forest, not yet, but of her corner of it. Of quiet kindness, of small things that mattered more than anyone realized. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of the ordinary world, Fenneca watched, proud and patient, ready to return when needed. Because some friendships are bigger than the world they begin in.